People are using boats and kayaks to rescue animals and salvage anything they can from the floodwaters. The cleanup will be immense, and the damage bill is expected to tip into the billions of dollars. This strain of coronavirus is related to the common cold, as well as the more serious and highly infectious SARS, or severe acute respiratory syndrome. At the moment, there is no vaccine or known cure for this new virus. In this council area alone, nearly 500 homes were destroyed and about 80% of this land burnt. It's quite incredible, though, to see just how quickly the landscape is recovering. But the trauma that people went through is still very raw. While the 4-year investigation may be complete, a lengthy court battle could soon follow. A special investigator will be appointed to prepare evidence for any possible war crime prosecutions, a process that will likely take years. The nation's first female Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, called it out in 2012. But stories of a toxic culture continue. One of the nation's largest populations of Chinese Australians lives here in the Sydney suburb of Hurstville. It made headlines for the wrong reason this year, though, with reports that the Chinese government bullied a local council into cutting ties with the newspaper, allegedly because it didn't toe Communist Party lines. This rally was only deemed lawful minutes before it was due to start, but many of these protesters were demonstrating hours before that, saying they want to see justice for those who have died in custody. Loopholes has rarely been off display since the gallery opened, so the closure of this space because of COVID-19 has provided the perfect opportunity to carry out this meticulous work, to find out more about some of the secrets buried beneath its many layers. We're at the entrance, but you can't really see much from here because the mine sits within a valley surrounded by bushland, and most of its operations happen about 500 metres beneath the surface. And the company says from that far underground, there's no evidence that it could threaten water supply. While many are expecting an overwhelming vote for independence, what that will look like in terms of building an economy and breaking away from Papua New Guinea isn't entirely clear yet. Another step beforehand, though, will take place here in PNG's parliament, where the government will need to approve any outcome. Of course, all plants absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but the difference with seaweed is just how efficient it is. It grows much faster than trees, doesn't need fertiliser or fresh water, and at the same time has a long lifespan. Just hours before the announcement, Australia updated its travel advice for Hong Kong, warning Australians could be at increased risk of detention on vaguely defined national security grounds. It says there could also be a similar risk on the mainland. Whether it's land clearing for farming or logging in state forests like this one, many environmentalists believe if Australia is serious about action on climate change, it needs to rethink how it manages its bushland and forests, or they warn habitats and wildlife are at risk of irreparable damage. While border closures have largely kept the virus within the state of Victoria, there are clusters emerging within New South Wales, in particular Sydney, and the federal government has warned the economic fallout will be nationwide. It's not just in the sea where Australia is feeling the effects of climate change. Of course, severe drought is intensifying bushfires, and scientists are calling for stronger climate policy from the government to reduce emissions. Without it, they say the situation will only get worse. Nicola Gage, Al Jazeera, Sydney. The number of elder abuse cases in Australia is on the rise, and it's been brought into focus after a horrific report documenting countless allegations of neglect here at the Oakden Older Persons Mental Health Facility in Adelaide. Residents were over-medicated, isolated and abused. The government blames a culture of cover-up.
This is one of the best places in the world for looking at early animal evolution.
Yeah, You can travel back through time from the Cambrian, through the Ediacaran to the Cryogenian, the Great Ice Age, all laid out like tilted books on a shelf.
Not only would World Heritage listing help better protect these ancient treasures, but it could also prove highly beneficial for tourism at a time when job opportunities in the region are scarce. The North Para River has burst and it is causing flooding right along through the Barossa Valley. We met with Miss Woodford's son and daughter this afternoon in Freegon, the Aboriginal community where Miss Woodford resided.
Oh, cucumber, my cucumber died. You see, deep water like that, you can't go inside, you see.
Just to give you an idea of how much water is still here, the levels in this channel have only dropped about 2 centimetres in the last 2 days. So it could take up to 3 weeks for this area to completely dry out. There's also a lot of people here today who weren't affected by the fire but have just come here to support the community. And with all of the funds raised here today going back to the fire relief, I can't think of a better way to spend the afternoon. The South Australian government still has $50 million on the table for whoever buys the steelworks. And while the Commonwealth has already provided $50 million in loans, the state government believes it should spend another $100 million to ensure its future viability. People who were in the caravan park at Tanunda were woken up at 2 a.m. this morning and told that they had to be evacuated. For decades, old laws have discriminated against people in the LGBTIQ community. This afternoon, Premier Jay Weatherill followed in the footsteps of Victoria and said sorry for the pain and suffering that has caused. The closure of Alinta Energy's mine at Lee Creek has been known for some months now, but the future of many residents here remains unclear. If this site is chosen, the facility would take up about 100 hectares of this 25,000 hectare property. The federal government is expected to make a final decision at the end of the year.